69 days, 3 hours, 58 minutes, and 4 seconds. Everybody know what that is, right? Inauguration Day. That's if we make it that far, huh? Hopefully we won't. Well, I know Yahweh's in full control. He's the one who sets up and removes kings, and we have to keep those things in mind. Remember, it's the whole thing is a system. It's a beastly governmental system, and unless someone from this house gets elected into office, we're not going to see any changes. The thing we're looking for is the end of mankind's governments of the people and by the people. Praise Yahweh, because everything is built up to this time period, and we're going to see a few things in this sermon where we are at the peak of sin. And what Yeshua talked about regarding the love that mankind has let grow cold. Well, yeah, I guess they kind of let it grow cold, but this is something that they were taught to relax their minds on. In other words, iniquity. And Yahweh said, he prophesied that this would be the worst time period in all the 6,000 year history of mankind, where we are at a point now where, yes, we actually can destroy all life from the face of this earth. And I remember Pastor saying, even if it wasn't for the nuclear bombs, I think we would do it with the diseases that mankind has been generating, or as one of the apostles said, they gender strife with our foods and our animals. The animals are so defiled because of man's sexual lust, and the sexual lust between a man and a woman and a man and a man, and the animals and so forth, all these things that are spoken of in Leviticus 18 that we are commanded to stay away from. And of course, all of this is encompassed in this great ball of wax that's called sin, going outside of an established body of laws that would keep your mind and your body healthy and strong, that would keep the ground, the agricultural, the things that we draw our food from clean and healthy to eat, our animals as well. And of course the firmament, which mankind thinks that we don't have any influence over that, but yes we do, because the activities that take place here on earth, you build a fire, where does the smoke go? It rises, and everything rises off of the earth with all the dust and the winds and everything that gets carried from one side of the earth to the other. So, it really takes an idiot to not realize that what one person does can affect a person halfway around the world. Now, I'm not saying you drop your pen and somebody, trips and falls because you created an earthquake, but the activities of mankind that go outside of the perfect laws that Yahweh has given affects not only that individual, but all the rest of humanity. And this is why we are being called and trained right now, and Pastor talks about this race that's being run. We're being called, or we have been called, now we're being trained so that we can be chosen to be a part of this administration that will never allow this to ever happen again. Because that's what the God has brought it about. The God Hap has brought all these things into, well, he's a part of it, he's just one of them, into into existence by influencing them to just ignore the laws of Yahweh. Yeah, there's something much better that we have to offer, and you can get it instantly. The kingdom, that's so far off. Look around. Can you see it? I don't see it. And then this is the things that are subtly taught to the people to make them want instant gratification, and that's what the world, like the one scripture says, that they have their reward now. They have their blessings now, and they're not going to get what we're training for. So the whole purpose, man, just strive. Don't allow anything or anyone to turn your heart or turn your mind away from the only source of power in the universe. And the only place that he has established this power or this light to go forth from is his prophesied established work, the House of Yahweh, and the one sent who he's the only one that has authority to bring forth this message of light, and the ones who follow along with him. So we've got the time period now where we're getting into the descending of the gods in the next month. And, Satan's energy, keep this in mind, is going to be growing stronger in intensity the closer we get to the end of this. So like Yeshua said to his apostles in Matthew 24, he said to them to be on guard that no man deceives you. I don't even know if we've gotten to the point of the greatest deception yet. I remember Pastor saying, I remember him saying that, and I thought, oh boy, you know, what does Satan have up her? Well, she probably doesn't wear even sleeves, but you know, I'm sure she doesn't follow the dress code. But you know, what does she have now to try to draw in her last-ditch effort the saints away from the house of Yahweh? But remember, those who are chosen and true and faithful, they won't be deceived. You know, they won't allow doubt. You know, one thing that'll drive that wedge in there is bitterness. Bitterness against your brothers, bitterness against the priest, you know, bitterness against the authority, your supervisor, whoever it is. That'll be that one little wedge that Satan needs to trip you up in this race that we're all supposed to be running together as a body. Remember, Yeshua says, a body you have given me, you have chosen for me. He is our head, and this body is running this race. Remember, they without us won't be made perfect. So this is all encompassing this whole body of people that is striving for this finish line or this end in which we will cross over into the great Yahweh family, the great Yahweh Shema. So just, you know, men, keep these things in your mind, because Satan is going to try everything that she possibly can to turn your head and to get you to looking and lusting after something that's going to perish very soon, and you're going to miss out on all the great blessings, or you could miss out. You won't, but if you were to go this way, you could miss out on all the great blessings, plus 1 billion times more of what you could ever imagine that Yahweh has for those who love Him. And of course, in 1 Yochanan 5:3, we have the definition of love, which is the keeping of the laws of Yahweh, simply put. Tell that to a Christian, and they'd probably be shocked out of their gourd that Yochanan even talked about something like that. They thought, well, we won't even get into it. But in chapter 8 here, on page 83, this is where we're going to be picking up here. And for those who may be joining us for the very first time, we're in the 15th book of Yisrayl, and righteousness prevails. And that's a very powerful statement. This is something that's inspired by Yahweh, because sin will not prevail. The gates of hell will not prevail. Righteousness is what's going to prevail throughout all eternity, and it's going to be us who ushers it in as this great family of Yahweh, the Yahweh family, the kingdom of Yahweh, after we come through all this testing, of course. Now, the race with Satan being run by the house of Yahweh is closing the doors to the churches. And this was, of course, sermon date 4/11/15. This is the AM service, Feast of Unleavened Bread. And Pastor, if we look at verse 2, he started off here. He says, I want you to know these news videos, they won't help the world. A few days in the nearest Walmart store and they'll forget all about it. They don't see what's creeping up on them. What these videos are for is to help the house of Yahweh see the cruelness that Yahweh prophesied the world to be in at this time. And of course, we're somewhat sheltered when you compare the great protection that we have in the house of Yahweh to what you see in like Syria and Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia. You can almost pick any place in the world. We're sheltered to a lot of these things because Yahweh is guarding and He's protecting His house. Our children are sheltered from a lot of these things. But we show this so that it'll bring to your mind the harshness and the stark reality of what the people are suffering under this same system, which is, yes, a Nimrod system, but, the elders of Israel, the scribes, the Pharisees, the Essenes, the Sadducees, the Holy Roman Empire, the Coptic Catholics, all of that is encompassed in this. And this is shown to not just to give you something to watch. Well, we draw everybody to Sabbath so they can watch television. That's the only television I get to watch all week, But we should be grasping these things of how it relates to Bible prophecies, how it relates to what Yahweh foretold in Genesis 49, the cruelty of the sons of Jacob would be in this time period, in the last days. You remember the very first scripture, let me show you what will befall you, what will become of you in the last days. And so when we see these things, we should associate it with what Yahweh foretold was going to be through his prophets, through Jacob, the great patriarch Jacob, of what family Yahweh is dealing with of all the families of the earth. And so he says, remember, he said, speaking of Yeshua, iniquity shall abound, and what will disappear? Of course, it's the love. The love. Well, if you turn over to Matthew 24, we'll try to move kind of quick here. In Matthew 24, just to refresh it in your mind there, Yeshua was talking about this in the time of period of the end, sign of the times and the end of the age. And in verse 11, he says, and many false prophets. Now back it up here, or move forward here. Look at verse 12. He says, and because iniquity, and you can read it one way or the other, and you'll get the same point. And because iniquity, the breaking of Yahweh's laws will abound, the love of many will grow cold. Well, why did that iniquity abound? In verse 11, because many false prophets arose, and they deceived the many. And in deceiving the many, they told them that they can be evil like the gods. They can have their cake and eat it too. You can go and commit all these sins, and then all you have to do is go to the clinic or the pharmacy or the doctor, and they'll heal you right back, and you can get right back in the saddle again, defiling everybody you come into contact with. And this is the deception who are the hospitals owned by? The Catholic Church. You remember those articles that we brought out? Remember the video that we showed? How much, 1 out of every 5 beds or something like that, is owned by the Catholic Church? Yeah, they've got their hands in this, because that's where by your great wisdom, remember Yahweh was speaking of Hillel, you've acquired wealth, riches for yourself. And this is, the love of this is deceive the many. It's caused many to fall. But many false prophets will arise, and as a result, iniquity will abound, and it's going to cause this love to grow cold. In fact, this word cold here, it's kind of funny, pronounced a little bit different, but it's spelled it's word 5594 in the Greek, and it's spelled, now I'll let you figure this out, P-S-Y-C-H-O. That's the definition of the word cold, psycho. So this is what you're going to fall into. If you practice this iniquity, you're going to become psycho, and you better watch what hotels you stay at after that. Cool, it also means cool by blowing, be made to grow cold, of waning love. In the dictionary, like the Webster's Dictionary definition, is lacking affection or warmth of feeling, lacking affection. Well, of course, this is something that, the teachers of Yahweh, the sons and the daughters of Yahweh actually build in themselves for one another and the creation of Yahweh, because we understand the benefit that Yahweh has in all of his creation, and we want to see to it that it stays perfect like Yahweh created it to be in Genesis chapter 1. And he says here, right, love and rejoicing will disappear, and of course hatred and wars and sin will abound. Well, the house of Yahweh is busy doing its job, and we're reaching the world. They sent me a thing this morning. He talks about the articles that's reaching over 19 million people. The house of Yahweh, when it first started, brother, and we had the pretty basic cassette tape. Just the cassette tape. Now, some of you parents might have to explain to your children what the cassette tape is, because I don't think they know what that is. But that's what we had. That's what we had when the message was going out. We didn't have satellite. We didn't have the internet. Internet wasn't even. It may have been invented, but it wasn't in public use. We didn't even have CDs at that time. And what was going outside of the tapes was what people were taking from the house of Yahweh to radio stations or to public access stations and so forth, and that was getting the message out a little bit more. Now Yahweh has made it to where we can reach everybody on the face of the earth pretty much instantly. Praise Yahweh. And this is technology that is used to benefit the work, but the gods are also using it to bring the strength of mankind down. But he's showing here all these articles and the letters that are going out, reaching over 19 million people in some instances. So the House of Yahweh, of course, is doing this job. I'll quiz you right quick. You remember what this job is, where it's defined or shown in the law of Yahweh? The job that we're doing right now in reaching the world, do you know where that's found in the laws of Yahweh? I'll give you a clue. It's in the positive section. We just got finished reading that just this feast. Nobody, you didn't memorize all them laws, man? Law 15. Positive law 15. You got it right here in the back of your book. You get to open book test. Preach and publish. We're to preach and publish the laws of Yahweh. Deuteronomy 6:9. And that's our job. That's the House of Yahweh's job. It's always going to be our job throughout all eternity. It's never going to end. And he says here, that's our job, the race that we're assigned to run against Satan. Remember, I hope you remember that part of the sermon that I covered there. That's what I want to continue on here today. And of course, he's going to get into Hebrews 12, but I want you to look back, if you got your books of Yahweh, let's turn back to 1 Corinthians. I'll try to read this quick here. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, because we are running a race. Yeah, it's going to be a showdown. Yeah, you know, the adversary or adversaries are going to be doing everything that they can to hold us back from reaching this finish line. And that's the goal, is to reach the finish line. We've got to reach, we have to endure until the end. In 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 24, it says, running the race, obtaining the reward. Do you not know that those who run in a race all compete, but only one receives the prize? So run your race that you may lay hold of the prize and make it yours. And everyone who competes conducts himself temperately. Now, of course, we've seen that in the fruits of the Spirit, which is practicing or exercising self-control. We shouldn't be allowing ourselves to be emotional in anything that we encounter, whether it's on the job site, whether it's something someone may have said to offend us. Maybe the day didn't go right, or maybe we didn't get our way. We must be temperate or practice self-control in all things. Now they compete to obtain a perishable crown, speaking of those who physically run these races, or really even the world. You can put the world in that situation there, because what they're striving for is perishing. But we for an imperishable crown. Therefore, I do not run like a man running aimlessly. I do not fight like a man who beats the air. No, I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified. Well, of course, this preaching is what we're prophesied to do in these last days, and we must at the same time bring ourselves, our minds, our bodies, our thoughts, our emotions into subjection of the laws of Yahweh, because it is through those laws that we're going to be governing the microorganisms that will be at our disposal to create flesh and create life, create new planets, create solar systems, galaxies if you want to. Yahweh's not going to hold it back from you, but we've got to prove ourselves right now that we're going to bring ourselves into subjection of the law of Yahweh. The law it's never going to perish. It's going to be our guide for all eternity. And it's what we're going to be teaching everybody that they must follow in order to have this peace, this joy, and abundant living that Yahweh absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, promises that you will have. Everyone will have. And even the things that don't have to keep the law, like the cows and the pigs and the chickens and even the little roaches, they're going to have peace and joy in their life, because we're not going to be doing anything to interfere with the perfection that Yahweh has established. We're going to be keeping that law, and like Yahweh says in Genesis 1, it was right, or it was perfect, it was righteous when He made it. Praise Yahweh. So let's look to verse 6 here. He says, look about to middle part there, third sentence. He says, if you'll get this sermon in your head, there won't be any way that you can doubt the job that Yahweh has assigned you to. He's called you. We are the called out ones, Yahweh says. We are the called out ones who Yahweh called out for a work to do. A work like warning the world. We're actually warning the world, and you can write for your notes, Yeketskia 33, 1 and 2, in verses 6 through 9, where he talks about the Son of Man, I've set you as a watchman, now go and warn the sinner. And if you do this, then he won't perish. If you don't do it and he sins, then, his blood's going to be held against your head. That is, for someone who is called and chosen and assigned to do that job, they have to stand in their place and do that job. If they don't, then that blood is on that individual's head, because they're responsible for the life or getting the message out to that person so that they could either have life or disqualify themselves from it. Then he talks about Yana here in verse 7. If you remember, Yana was called out for a work to do, to go warn Nineveh. Of course, all that ties in with this work. And of course, Yana didn't want to do it. He knew Yahweh was merciful. He obviously knew that these people may have had the tendency to repent and turn. What other reason would he have wanted to turn? He had to know something about it, besides for Yahweh being merciful. If he knew that they were just a bunch of stiff-necked, wicked people, then I'll go prophesy against them, and sit back and watch everything just get destroyed. But no, he knew this, and the people, they showed through their actions, they humbled themselves and they repented. And that's the type of repentance and humility that Yahweh likes to see coming forth from his people. I remember I listened to a sermon, he said that's one thing that absolutely touches the heart of Yahweh is humility and repentance. And fasting and sackcloth is a way to get that before to Yahweh. He knows that when you separate yourself from your food, it might not be hard if you got a bad cook you're dealing with, but if you separate yourself from your food, and devote yourself in prayer and fasting to him for others, Yahweh will take care of you, and the prayers of the priest will take care of you. But do this for others, then he knows that you're sincere in what you're doing, and he will draw nearer to you in that. So remember that. Verse 8, but he says here in Hebrews 12:1, therefore, since we are also surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. We're reaching the world with the message from Yahweh. The witness that I just showed you here are in the millions. These great cloud of witnesses. So let's look over here. Let's look a little bit because he's talking about the articles and how they're going out. And as a result, people are questioning their churches and their numbers are dwindling. And when the numbers dwindle, their offerings dwindle. And when their offerings dwindle, they can't pay their utility bills, and they're closing their doors, and they're having to grasp at the wind to find ways to draw in the audiences. And he mentions one of these churches actually turned their services into a cage match here. What do they call it here? Cage match. But anyway, some type of wrestling thing. And he says, now this is going in verse 10, this is going in their houses of worship. What gods are they worshiping here? Well, the gods of war. The same thing our governments are worshiping. Here they're probably worshiping the gods of, WWF, SmackDown, and, Hulk Hogan and Paul Orndorff and all these other guys. These are probably old school guys. But, this is who they're worshiping. And people, they get a great pleasure out of watching people beat the snot out of somebody else. This is sickening, but this is what mankind's hearts and their minds have turned to where there is no love. And then he talks about in verse 11 that in verse 2 of Hebrews 12:2, that we need to lay aside every weight. And then he uses this word encumbrance here. This word encumbrance actually means a hindrance, obstruction, obstacle, and it also means drawback. One of the things we made in our vow to Yahweh was that we would not allow anything or anyone to draw us back into God worship. And we have to be very mindful of what influences we allow around us, because if we're not careful, we can be drawn back into God worship. So guard your mind with all diligence. Don't put yourself in a situation where at a weak moment you could be tempted to sin. A wise man sees danger and he goes the other way. Let's look over here to verse 17. He says, by all means, build your life in this work. Lay aside all this other stuff, these encumbrances, these weights, these obstructions, these things that cause you to draw back, these distractions. Lay aside all this other stuff that's binding you down, and lay that aside and get yourself here where you can go to work in the house of Yahweh and train and get involved in the classes. Now, the world looks at things that's binding them down. They look at marriages that way, right? They look at, what do they call marriage? The old ball and chain. That's what they call marriage. You know, and they got a you-know-what for a wife, and she's got a bastard for a husband, and you know, they are so eager and lusting for one another, and then after the honeymoon's over, they hate each other with a greater hatred than they had the lust for each other. And this is what you get in the world when you don't have a relationship founded on the laws of Yahweh. You know, do you fall in love with somebody? Hell no, you don't fall in love with somebody. You should know better than that. You grow in love with somebody. It takes years to grow in love with another individual. And that comes over time. That comes over working together. You know, I mean, yes, you can have a general love for your neighbor, but, you know, this stupid thing of love at first sight, yeah, you know, and hate at first fight, and you're ready to get a divorce. You know, men, we have to have our minds in the laws of Yahweh and sing, you know, that with Yahweh, praise Yahweh, it's forever. Don't allow what Hollywood, what he talks about here in verse 23 on page 86, don't allow them to get this in your mind of all this, you know, I don't know, vomit. That's about the best way I could describe it. It's vomit that they put out there in these movies to make you think that this is the way that it has to be. This is the way that it has to be. Of course, it's all deception. In verse 23, he says, the sins which so easily entrap us, lay these things aside and let us run the race. Well, what sin entraps you? Now here, look at what we're talking about here. Are they sexual sins? Well, that's mostly what they are. They're pushed from Hollywood, California, the place that brings forth Satan to its greatest extent, and Satan's teachings being taught in the schools. In 2015, Hollywood, I don't know if that was their record year, maybe it was 2014 for the number of people that actually came to visit Hollywood, California, or California. But in 2015, you know, they brought in $11.5 billion in sales from tickets, from movies. People going to waste their time and escape reality. Hopefully nobody from here spent their money on such garbage. But that's what they did. $11.5 billion going to Hollywood to continue to support that system, which is bringing the strength and the power of the people down. So, you know, we need to lay these things aside. And of course, verse 29 says, seek first the kingdom of Yahweh and his righteousness. And in verse 12:5 in Deuteronomy, it says the place we do that or find that is in the house of Yahweh. Let's see here. Let's look over to page 88. And he's talking about the system of Nimrod, which all of this falls under the system of Nimrod. In verse 37, he says, Nimrod is a school of terrorists, training of soldiers, training of the ranking soldiers, the generals that make generals, and high ranking in the army business. This is what the Nimrod system created. They terrorized the people and forced them into slavery situation, just like we have in the United States today, where men and women are forced to work to pay bills, and if both of them don't work, they lose what they had their hearts set on, which were material things, which they're running this race trying to obtain a perishable crown, which are these material things. And our crown is something that will not perish. Let's look over to verse 47 here. And he says, the point is, serving the gods is what brings forth sickness and disease. All these things that we just talked about here. Sin brings forth sickness and disease. Sexual sins bring forth STDs that are plaguing the world right now. They're also plaguing the atmosphere, as you all know, especially if you've read our article on the true cause of global warming, which was a warning going out, but it's of global warming. And of course, our job right now is to stand in our place, hold fast to the laws of Yahweh, and get ready, brethren, to go into this great phase, this next phase of training billions of people in the laws of Yahweh, so we can start cleaning this mess up that have been totally destroyed, or created, I should say, as a result of following the gods. May Yahweh bless your understanding, and if you'll all please stand, turn it over to the great Khan Malakia.
Yeah, praise Yahweh, man. You may be seated. So we're going to continue from where the great priest left off in the 15th book of Yisrayl. Righteousness prevail. And when we look at, this is the end, this is the outcome of this 6,000 years where righteousness will prevail. The plan of Yahweh will be completed at that time. Right? And we in the house of Yahweh in these last days will be lifted up. When I say lifted up, the world will see, well, look, yes, Yahweh have loved his people. Right? But as the priest said, we must hold fast with this race that we are running. Right? And this is the title of the sermons. The race with Satan being run by the house of Yahweh is closing the doors to the churches. And what we have to remember with this race that we are running here, this race is not for the swiftest. You know, it's not a battle for the strong. But day by day, you know, we have to keep on pushing on the laws of Yahweh, keep pushing on the work that we are called out by Yahweh to do. So let us look at, turn to page 90. We'll start with verse 53. And he will speak great words against Yahweh. Now, we said he will speak great words against Yahweh. Now, it have to be a religion to speak great words against another religion. So we can see exactly what he has been teaching us or showing us. Right, going right back to the beginning. These two trees in the Garden of Eden. Right? So you have to be a religion to speak great words against another religion. And this is what we have to look at. And will wear out. So we see another thing will wear out. That's mentally attack to fall away. The saints of Yahweh. And think to change time. Yahweh feast days. Now, why it is so important for this other religion or Satan to change Yahweh's feast days? Why is it so important? Why this have to be something very important to them? Why? What's that? Well, exactly so. Right? Because they know, well, look, what does feast days represent? Is the appointed time that Yahweh will meet with his people to teach us. So we could obtain that mark of Yahweh. So if you take away, change that whole time with the feast and so on, basically what they are doing, we'll be receiving the mark of Satan. Right? So that is why she want to change this feast days. She knows it is so important to us, to Yahweh, to meet with his people, to train us to become like Yahweh. Yahweh feast days and laws. Who keep the feast days? That's another prophecy for you here. Yahweh's people keep his feast. They keep the laws. Seek the place he chooses. Seek the place he chooses. The place to place his name. And there 3 times a year and keep his feast. If the place be too far, go anyway. He said, if it is too far, go. No, I'm not gonna build you another one here where you are. This one is the one. Go to it and there find you an assigned job. Do what the priest tell you to do. And this is one of the key things, what we have to look at. It said, do what the priest tells you to do. Now, this is not only on the feast days. This is his counseling. Anytime we go to our counselors and ask for advice, this is what he's speaking about. Right? This is how we draw near to Yahweh, by seeking Yahweh. Right? So going to our counselors and asking, or whatever, how to deal with this situation. And once the priest lay down the foundation, how to deal with this situation peacefully, that is what we have to do. This is what he's speaking about here. Go to the priest. Seek the advice from the lips of the priest. This is what he's speaking here. Right? So this is how, we'll draw near to Yahweh. He said, do what the priest tells you, and that's it, with all your might, and do it with all your might. Why? To prove you will. So we see what is taking place. What is taking place is obedience. That is the key thing. And we know obedience is what? Obedience is the keys to the kingdom. Right? No, it didn't say here now, okay, if you didn't like what this priest tell you, go and find another priest. I twist the story a little bit. No, you can't find out nowhere in the book of Yahweh. And if that priest give you the same information, jump here and go to another priest and twist the story a little bit to get what you want. It ain't saying anything like that. It said, take the advice the priest give. Right? Take that advice. It didn't say go skipping around. Well, okay, this is what I want to hear, so this is what I'm going to go with. Right? It said to prove you will, yes. That's why, right, to prove yourself to Yahweh. So you see exactly who we're proving ourselves to Yahweh. All right, let's go forward a little bit. Let's look over to verse 63. To the laws and to the prophecies, if they speak not according to this word, if they are not prophesied, in other words, if I can't show you myself, in prophecies, or the house of Yahweh in prophecies, I'll be a liar. You see that? If they don't speak according to the laws and the prophecies, it's because there is no light in them. That light itself means law. There is no law in them. Even there are laws that they have in the world today. They pass laws and they say, well, this law is ridiculous. It's not working. Well, let's pass another one to take its place. So they pass another one that's as ignorant as that one was to begin with. And this goes on all the time. They have got so many trillions laws in the United States. There is no way they even know what they are doing. But Yahweh's laws give light. Hear what Pastor is saying here. He said, but Yahweh's laws give light to those who choose his way. And we have to understand exactly, what Pastor is saying here. Those who choose. The laws of Yahweh give light to those who choose Yahweh's way. Okay, so what we're looking at here, we have to choose every single law of Yahweh. This is what it's saying. We can't have that shopping cart mind. Christianity have a shopping cart mind. Okay, 613 laws. They're pushing their trolley down. Okay, I'll take this law. Okay, I don't want this law. I'll take these 3 laws. Okay, I don't want that law. That is shopping cart mind. We can't have that shopping cart mind. We have to choose the whole body of laws. Right? We have to choose the whole body of law. And as the first speaker mentioned, if you have a problem with lust, right, you can't use that as an excuse to say, well, look, okay, well, I'll keep 612 laws, but this lust over here, I'll choose to lust after things that is not, lawfully mine. Right? But that means we are not choosing his ways. Whatever we may be struggling with, right? Those are the laws we have to put out even extra effort to overcome. If we have a problem with our supervisor and we are not humbling ourselves to that individual, if that is what we're struggling with, that is the law we have to put out a lot of effort in overcoming. Right? Every individual should be aware of what they are struggling with. Right? And if we waste our time studying, well, look, what this individual is struggling with, well, this individual, doing such and such and such, and, I can't deal with this individual, and we spend all our time studying that individual, we lose out. Because who we're supposed to be paying focus on, our mind is supposed to be focusing on is ourselves in overcoming whatever problem we have. So you can't have this shopping cart mind. We have to love all laws of Yahweh, every one of the laws of Yahweh. And the thing is, we know the difference between righteousness and holiness. Right? Righteousness is keeping the laws of Yahweh. What is holiness? What's that? That's right. Loving the laws. And if, Pastor mentioned this series of sermon that he's dealing with right now with the sons of Yahweh. Right? Remember what he had mentioned? He said that the office that these sons of Yahweh held, was way up here. Right? He said that is the office these beings had before they fall, before they left the heavenly habitation. And he said these are the office that will be given to us. So we can't just keep the laws of Yahweh. Right? Because anyone can keep the laws of Yahweh. Right? Yahshua commands us, he said, to be holy as Yahweh is holy. That means we have to love performing the laws of Yahweh. Right? And this office that we are being offered, that is the requirements that we have to make. We actually have to love performing the laws of Yahweh. Not sometimes, it's every time. The laws of Yahweh shouldn't be part of our lives. The laws of Yahweh should not be part of our life. It should be our whole life. Right? Our whole lives. That is what the laws of Yahweh should be, not part. Because every law governs every single movement we make, the way we think. It have a law to govern every single thing. So the laws of Yahweh had to be our total lives. And this is how Yahshua lived. Yahshua lived by keeping the laws of Yahweh. He was consumed in the laws of Yahweh. And this is the mindset we have to have. Right? Because we are the first fruit. The first fruit that will inherit the kingdom of Yahweh. Right? And that is the standard we have to reach. That is the things, we have to keep our minds focused on. Let's look over to page 92, starting verse 72. It says, you will learn that song then. You will learn what that song actually means. That song of rejoicing, that was inspired. Yahweh talked about it in the sky, as you saw this morning from the great Kohan Benjamin Krause Hawkins, and the sermons he brought before that. The writings were there, the numbers were there, the harness, or who would know what harness is in today's world? Is it found in Walmart in their push button section? Well, I don't think so. It might be if they have a dictionary. Harnessing the mule and horses, tethering them to the branch, the donkey and the donkey's colt, and we have to remember exactly what this tethering means to the choicest branch. Right? We have to understand what this really means. Tethering them to the branch, or the choicest branch. Remember what this word means. It means bind. Right? So what it's saying is actually we have to bind ourselves to Yisrayl Hawkins. How are we going to bind ourselves to Yisrayl Hawkins? What's that? Yeah, listen and obey. Right? That's the key thing. Obedience is the key to the kingdom of Yahweh. Right? And he is keeping the laws of Yahweh. He's striving. And that is how we have to become. If we have to join ourselves to Yisrayl Hawkins, right? His mind is focused on keeping the laws of Yahweh. That mindset we have to have. That's the way we bind ourselves to him. We have to believe into him. Believe in that work that he's bringing forth in these last days. Right? That's how we bind ourselves, to Yisrayl Hawkins. Tying them together, harnessing them together to run a race with Satan, who Yahweh let way ahead of us. He let Satan way ahead of us, but I tell you, her houses are crumbling. They are closing doors. So you see what is taking place. The house of Yahweh is being elevated, going up. And these churches are going down because, they said freedom of rights, freedom to speak. Freedom of rights. But their freedom of rights are, well, look, okay, this is what we are given. That is the only option you have. The Catholic Church, that is the only option you have. Freedom of rights, but that is the only choice you have. That is not freedom of rights. Freedom of rights is you have to see, the two sides of the coin. The two sides of the coin. Right? Let us say this is a coin. You have to see this side and you have to see this side. Right? And what divide the two of them is Yahweh. Right? For someone to have freedom of choice, they have to see what this side is offering and what that side is offering. And then that individual will choose. But if they only see, well, look, this is the only option you have, that is not freedom. Right? That is not freedom whatsoever. Yeah, but we have to bind ourselves, to Yisrayl Hawkins, because this is the only way that, we're going to qualify into the kingdom of Yahweh. Verse 81 said, well, Yada was the one that was given the laws. Yahweh, the tribe of Yada. If you don't know who I'm talking about, look it up in the dictionary. Look it up in a concordance. Or pull it up, Yada, in Yisrael Said program, and read all this stuff that I've brought here on this Yada. He was given the laws. His brothers will praise him. Yahweh said, praise him. If you read Genesis 49, and he will hold that law until Joshua is ready to take over. Right? He said he's going to continue holding that law until Joshua is ready to take over. Now, the ruling staff, okay, let me just read on some more. How long will it be? Right, that's the question. He said, how long will it be? Yahweh said, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. Now, how Yahshua enemies is being made his footstool right now? Yahshua is sitting at the right hand of Yahweh. Right? So how is it Yahshua's enemy is being made his footstool? It's one way. It's by the work that Yisrael Hawkins is doing. That is how Yeshua's enemy is gonna be at his footstool. That's when the Lord will go forth from Yeshua to this huge gathering. Well, it starts now. It starts out right now, and soon that service will be taken totally away from the Roman Catholic Church, who are all Yadaites, Yada of the tribe of Yada, or all of these 12 tribes that came out of Egypt, but they are all following these laws that came forth from the 7 hills of Rome. So we see even more that pastor, the sermons that pastor is going through, we have even a more in-depth information, right, of this tribe of Yada. Right? Remember I said they hold that ruling scepter, meaning, well, look, they are the lawgivers. Now, without the knowledge that Yahweh allowed to come through Israel Hawkins, someone in the world, they want to understand exactly that the Catholic Church is the ones that is calling, every single shot. Right? Because they are the ones, they are the lawgiver in these last days. For now, they are the ones that are carrying on, that ruling scepter. Right? The tribe of Yada. Until now, they're going to control, or there will be that ruling scepter until Yahweh finish sealing us. Right? Until Yahweh finish sealing his people. Because when we look at Revelation 7, it said, wait until, it said, do not hurt the trees, neither the plants, nor the water, and all that stuff, until we have sealed the servant of Yahweh in their forehead. Right? And when I say forehead, it means our mind. The law must be sealed in our mind. Right? And when that sealing is done, then nuclear war is going to start. Right? So basically, Yahweh is waiting on us. All the time delay, all the time delay that Yahweh, delay time, it was for us. Because the laws have to be in our mind. Right? That's why I said, well, look, the laws of Yahweh can't be part of our life. It has to be our total life. We must be eating, sleeping, drinking the laws of Yahweh for it to be on our mind. And we have to practice it. Now, what is the difference? Okay. Wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Right? Now, knowledge is reading the law and identifying, well, look, these are the laws of Yahweh. That is the knowledge. No, that is the understanding, sorry. That is the understanding. Now, the wisdom, what is the wisdom? That's right. It's the implementation of the law. That's why Solomon used that. Solomon said, well, I done such and such. In Solomon's days, he was classified as one of the wisest individual, the wisest individual. Why? Because if you read Solomon writing carefully in Ecclesiastic, he said he done such and such and such and such and such. He did everything, and everything beside keeping the laws of Yahweh or serving Yahweh was folly or foolishness. Right? So the application of the laws of Yahweh is what makes an individual wise. Right? So we have the knowledge, the wisdom, and the understanding, but the wisdom comes with the implementation, into putting it into practice in our everyday life. That will make an individual wise. Right? So all of this is going to take place. That ruling scepter will not pass until, the servants of Yahweh is completely sealed, in our action, in our forehead, in our mind. Let's look over to page 94. Let's look at verse 89. Well, Satan comes along and say, did Yahweh say, yeah, you better believe he did, and he mean every word that he says. That should be your answer to everything that takes place. Don't let the world pull you away. Listen what Pastor said here. Don't let the world pull us away. It will very easily. You will get out there in the world and Satan will start working on you. Right? It said you will get out there and Satan will start working on you. He said, don't let the world pull us. Now, we could be here and the world is still pulling us. Remember what Romans said? Do not be conformed to the pattern of the world. Right? Do not be conformed to the pattern of the world. Meaning, well, look, take on their character, the way they think. Right? Wanting to lust. All that is Satan pulling us back into a whole type of God worship. And Pastor is showing us that. He said, don't let the world pull us back. Don't let Satan draw us back. And it's a constant battle. Why is a constant battle? Because we were born in sin and we were shaped in iniquity. That carnal mind we have. Anytime we allow that carnal mind to start to lock back in to the things that is desired in the world, Satan is pulling us. The world is pulling us back out. And the carnal mind, a great priest had mentioned to me, he said the carnal mind is like a rat in a box. A big rat in a box, always looking some way to get out. That's how our carnal mind is. Seeking ways to get out from that box, to go back into the world. But when we look at, we have to remember the things that, Pastor, Yahweh is having in store for us. And Pastor is showing us bits and pieces what Yahweh have in store for us. So, we have to keep our mind focused on the great blessing that, to even be in the house of Yahweh. Because, Yahweh didn't actually have to call any one of us. He chose, for us to be part of his plan. And how we have to show that we are thankful to Yahweh is by keeping his laws. Is by coming wiser, practicing the laws of Yahweh. I'll have a few seconds here. Let's look at just part of our pastor prayer. Let's look at verse 94. We bless you and praise you for, you see what he said? For this knowledge that we see in the Holy Scripture. We see that no other person, no other being could bring this together like you have. And in the last days establish a house that will actually teach peace in the world of sin and suffering and death. It's so amazing that these prophecies are being fulfilled at this time by this tiny group of people. We bless you and praise you for this, Father. So, this is a great blessing, to see all these prophecies being fulfilled. We are witnesses. We are witnesses to all the prophecies that Yahweh said will take place in these last days. Right? That Yisrayl Hawkins, we know the prophecies with the Yisrayl Hawkins, we know the prophecies with the House of Yahweh established. We know the prophecies that the House of Yahweh have to fulfill. So, we should be very joyful, and praising Yahweh each and every day, to be part of this work. And we have to pray constantly for Yahweh to keep us in his work.